Good morning, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Dr. Mario Espinosa Kulik, and I'll be introducing myself, and I'll be doing it in English and Spanish, and then we'll pass it over to our interpreters, just to let you all know first. So I'm Dr. Mario Espinosa Kulik, Ethnic Studies faculty here at Cuesta College. I teach at our California Men's Colony campus, which is just down the road at the state prison, as well as online and here at the San Luis Obispo campus.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Seb Parada. I'm also an ethnic studies instructor here. This is my first year at Cuesta. I teach in person at the North County campus in Paso Robles, as well as online courses. And we're very excited to see you all here. And for those of you on Zoom, welcome. And we're going to have a great schedule for you today.
Definitely. Thank you, Seb. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. And those of you who are walking in, feel free to find your name tag over there at the registration table. And there's also programs and your swag bag. For folks over there on Zoom, we do have our participants in here. We have our interpreters who have arrived. And like I said, we're going to be introducing ourselves in both English and Spanish before we hand it over to our interpreter team and over then to our keynote. So, hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Dr. Mario Espinosa Kulik. Trabajo aquí en Ethnic Studies en Cuesta College y doy clases en el California Men's Colony aquí por abajo de la Highway 1. Es una cárcel del estado y también trabajo enseñando clases en línea y aquí en San Luis.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Sebastián Ferrada, yo también soy instructor de Ethnic Studies. Yo enseño clases en Paso Robles, en el lugar en Paso Robles. Y estamos muy felices que estén todos aquí.
Gracias, Seb. Y un recordatorio para todos y todas, tenemos interpretación disponible para esta reunión. Si se sintoniza por computadora, busca el icono de globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla, haga clic en el globo y seleccione español. Si nos acompaña por la aplicación de Zoom en el teléfono o tableta, busca el menú de 3 puntos. Seleccione Language Interpretation y seleccione español. También puedes silenciar el audio original para oír solo a la interpretación. Reminder, we have the interpretation available for this meeting. If tuning by computer or laptop, look for the global icon at the bottom of the screen. Click on the globe and select Spanish. If you accompany us by Zoom app, on a phone or tablet, look for the 3-dot menu, select Language Interpretation, and select Spanish. You can also mute the original audio so you only hear the interpretation. Para los intérpretes, si gustan introducirse.
Muy buenos días.
Mario, I'm sorry, we're not, the Zoom support is not able to drop things in chat, not able to drop those instructions in chat.
Okay, I just made you a co-host, Lara. Does that work
great.
for you now?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Intérpretes, por favor.
Muy buenos días. Para facilitar acceso lingüístico, proporcionaremos interpretación simultánea entre inglés y español. Mi nombre es Lena. Estoy aquí con mi colega Regina. Nosotros seremos sus intérpretes hoy día. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada. Si usted no es bilingüe en inglés y en español, tendrá que elegir el idioma en el que desea escuchar la interpretación. De nuevo, si está usando una computadora, verá un icono en forma de globo, aparecerá en un momento en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla. Ahí dirá interpretación, ustedes harán clic y seleccionarán español. Si nos acompañan a través de la aplicación de Zoom, ya sea en una tableta o un teléfono, buscarán el menú de 3 puntos, elegirán interpretación de idiomas y elijan español y luego done. De nuevo, pueden silenciar el audio original. Y si tienen alguna pregunta, pueden mandar un chat a los hosts para que les ayuden. Good morning. In order to facilitate language access, we will be providing simultaneous interpretation between English and Spanish. My name is Lana, and I'm here with my colleague, Regina. We will be the interpreters for today. For anyone who's bilingual, you won't have to press anything, but if you're not bilingual in English and Spanish, you'll need to select the language you wish to hear the interpretation. If you're joining us on a PC or laptop, in a moment, you'll look for the globe icon on the bottom right. It will say interpretation, and you'll select English. If you're on the Zoom application on a tablet or phone, you'll locate the three-dot menu on the top right, click on language interpretation, and again, select English. You can then go ahead and mute the original audio. We'd like to remind all of our speakers to please speak one at a time and at a moderate pace. And we need our host to please assign both Lena and Regina to the interpreter channel. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Lena y Regina, por estar aquí por interpretación. I will be assigning you as interpreters as of right now. Comienza la interpretación. Bueno. Gracias otra vez a nuestros Zoom support, Lara Baxley, por estar ahí en Zoom ayudando a los atendientes, participantes, y gracias al equipo de intérprete. Vamos a comenzar con nuestro programa. We're going to begin with our program. This is our land acknowledgement here at Cuesta College. Our Ethnic Studies department has drafted our own to be relevant to our department, and it begins: the San Luis Obispo Community College District and Cuesta College acknowledge that our campuses occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Salinan tribe, also known as the Tepotao, people of the Oaks, and also the Yakitutu Yakchilini Northern Chumash tribe in their cultural capital, Chilini, the place of the full moon, San Luis Obispo. We recognize and respect Indigenous communities as the rightful and traditional sovereigns and stewards of the land, as well as the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their territories. We collectively understand that land acknowledgements do not excuse settler colonial privilege, nor do they diminish colonial structures of violence at either the individual or institutional level. Our acknowledgements must be followed by ongoing and unwavering commitments to honoring Native American and Indigenous communities. As a hybrid event, we further recognize that participants currently occupy distinct Native territories and lands. If you are unfamiliar with whose lands you reside or work on, we encourage you to use the website https://native-land.ca to learn more and connect with local tribal communities. At Cuesta, one action we are taking to enact our land acknowledgement is the Student Award for Service to Native American and Indigenous Communities, which recognizes our students who demonstrate leadership through services, activities, and achievements that benefit diverse Indigenous communities. Please consider giving a donation to support this student award today. You can scan the QR code on page 1 of your program, or to visit the QR code on the page of your program or here on the slide. The URL is https://tinyurl.com/SASNAIC23. And I also want to extend our gratitude to our IT and facilities team for your support today. Our in-person participants, please do make sure to complete your registration at the table in the back if you haven't done so already. As you all know, if you're here, parking lot number 2 on our campus is free for the day. If you are in need of a gender-inclusive bathroom, they are available in 3100, 2700, and the 4000 building. These are marked on the map in your program. Please do help yourself to snacks at the back over there. After our keynote and morning workshops, we will have a provided lunch from Zoe's Hawaiian Barbecue in Santa Maria in the courtyard during the drag show at noon. This event is being recorded. Resources, slides, and recordings will be posted to this folder and sent in a follow-up email. You can also scan the QR code on the screen above us right now. Follow us on our Instagram at Cuesta Ethnic Studies, email us at ethnicstudies@cuesta.edu, and you can access our Ethnic Studies Library Research Guide at libguides.cuesta.edu/ethnic studies. First up, we'll have our keynote, Dr. Brittany Wiley shortly, and we will begin with our program. But before we do that, there is a wheel of names for our student participants who are with us today to win some prizes. Ajay James. Great. Congratulations, Ajay. Mariela Diaz Campos. We have 3 more gift cards to go. Go. Laura Michelson. Mikey Carnes. And our last card. Grace O'Malley. Congratulations to these 5 students who just won a $25 gift card for being registered to attend our event. And I'll pass it over to Seb.
Hey, so I want to thank some of our sponsors and collaborators for today. The Cuesta College Ethnic Studies teach-in was made possible through collaboration with this year's community partner, the Diversity Coalition of San Luis Obispo County. Thank you for your support. We would like to thank our sponsors who provided the resource and person power to make this program a reality, including the Diversity Coalition of San Luis Obispo County, Planned Parenthood California Central Coast, Cuesta College Ethnic Studies Department, the Office of Instruction, the Applied Behavioral Science Division, Equity and Student Success Committee, Student Life, the Cultural Center, Cuesta Pride, and associated students of Cuesta College and the Cuesta College Foundation. We'd also like to take a moment to thank some of the individuals who went above and beyond to help them make this event happen through their collaboration, dedication, and support. So that includes Rita Casaverde, Stephen Heraldo, Dr. Alex Espinosa Kulik, Vicky Schemmer, Mylia Christensen, Jack DePoy, Megan Scholar-Jones, Brenda Rodriguez, Sharon Hott, Richie Bermudez, Dr. Greg Baxley, Lori Buckholtz, Dr. Lara Baxley, Jennifer Schreiber, Dylan Burke, Carrie Bull, and many more, as well as our facility staff, presenters, and ethnic studies students. The Ethnic Studies teach-in is approved by the Faculty Professional Development Committee as an equity training AP 7120. Anyone who attends this important event will be able to use their attendance to satisfy the equity requirements for serving on hiring committees at Cuesta College. So, we also want to share that if you're able to please consider a donation to the Ethnic Studies Endowment, which supports our student-centered work on campus for racial justice, decolonization, equity, and inclusion. So you can text CCES to 44321 to make your donation today, or visit https://tinyurl.com ES Endowment. You can also scan the QR code on the screen, or I believe it's also on in your programs. So the goal is to raise $7,395 to meet the $10,000 goal to set up the endowment. All right, so now it's my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, who is Dr. Brittany Wiley. Dr. Brittany Wiley received an EdD in Educational Leadership and Master's in Ethnic Studies from San Francisco State University, and attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for undergraduate studies in English with a minor in ethnic studies. Her dissertation, titled Parables of Passing and Pedagogy, a practitioner study of teaching Africana literature online, addresses critical race pedagogy and how to cultivate a culturally relevant and engaging online learning community embedded in educational practices rooted in social justice, equity, and ethnic studies. Dr. Wiley has adjunct lectured at Cal Poly and SFSU, teaching ethnic studies and Africana studies courses. Additionally, Dr. Wiley dedicated a decade to working in the nonprofit sector for an early childhood education literacy organization and participated in 2 years of national service with AmeriCorps. Dr. Wiley was born and raised in Paso Robles and currently resides in Redding, California, continuing her professional passion of teaching ethnic studies as an instructor at Shasta College. So please welcome Dr. Brittany Wiley.
Great, thank you so much. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, perfect, okay. Well, hello and welcome everyone to the second annual Ethnic Studies teach-in at Cuesta College. When I was approached to give the keynote address at today's event by Mario and Seb, my initial thoughts were a mix of who, me, accompanied by fear, doubt, and then initially settling at what an honor. Who, me, crossed my mind because of the persistent imposter syndrome that, like many of you may also deal with, occupies my thoughts on the daily. Once I realized fear and doubt were creeping in, it was time to switch on the internal pep talk. I reminded myself that true growth and learning develops at the margins of pushing oneself through scary situations. But then the idea of cancel culture and if I say the right thing or not, well, I figured I'd be among allies and like-minded people who would be forgiving. And if I just spoke from my heart and soul, then it would all be okay. Let's not forget doubt though. Not measuring up and folks walking away uninspired. So after a flurry of all of these thoughts and emotions settled, I chose to be honored. Honored because I love ethnic studies and all that it represents. Honored because of my hometown pride, being from Paso Robles, born and raised. Honored because community colleges like Cuesta College, which resides on the ancestral lands of Yaquitutu, Yaktilhini, Northern Chumash tribe of San Luis Obispo County and region, provide opportunities for local community members, students, faculty, staff, everyone really, and serve as spaces to liberate minds through the transformative impact of education. And that is something that I wanted to be a part of. That is something that I absolutely stand for. And so I said yes. Throughout this speech, I'll be sharing names of influential people, teachers, educators, scholars, researchers, and showcasing various books and reading material. And I'm happy to provide a reference slide for folks interested in exploring any of the authors' work that I mentioned. For me personally, when I'm in an audience at conferences, I'll be trying to pay attention, but then also be taking copious notes. And so I would miss names sometimes of book recommendations or folks that I wanted to check out who would have piqued my curiosity. So I support sharing sources and exchanging information, and in the spirit of collaboration and paying tribute to the voices that are being borrowed from, I'll provide a reference slide at the end. I'm going to momentarily share my screen so that I can show a quick overview of what will be talked about. So being a woman of color, I've had many defining racial experiences. I identify as mixed race. My dad is African-American Black, and my mom is white of European descent. We can actually trace our ancestry back to Finland, where my great-grandparents came from. Most of my defining educational experiences involve ethnic studies and African-American classes. Because identity and race are intricately intertwined, as Michael, Omi, and Howard Winant, two leading scholars within ethnic studies discipline, they decree in racial formations in the United States, which they published originally in 1994. I will share elements of my personal and professional journey relevant to diversity, equity, inclusion, and demonstrate how vital culturally relevant curriculum and critical race pedagogy is to disciplines such as ethnic studies and education. I'm going to start off with my background and timeline of my ethnic studies journey. I'll then briefly discuss foundations of the ethnic studies discipline, culturally relevant and critical race theory and pedagogy, and then talk about some of the attempts to exclude ethnic studies education, and end with a celebration of achievements of California's strides with ethnic studies. And then at the end, there'll be time for Q&A or public commentary. So ethnic studies has been a part of my life since high school. As a freshman, it was either freshman year or the sophomore year, it was one of my early high school years, I was enrolled in a semester-long introductory ethnic studies course taught by a teacher named Mr. Cooper. The class content explored a variety of different racial and ethnic groups. And before this particular class, I had no idea what ethnic studies was or what it meant. My senior year of high school, I took African American literature as an elective. I was surprised that this course was even offered at my predominantly white high school and jumped at the opportunity to enroll. Therein ensued my academic interest in scholarship related to ethnic studies. As I reflect on my orientation to ethnic studies, I think about a memory from my 12th grade African American literature class, where the teacher asked me about my racial identity. He assigned the poem Cross by Langston Hughes, and this was my first time reading it. It resonated with me instantaneously, and I have since read it so many times that I have memorized it. If there's time at the end, I can share it with anyone else who's interested in it. It's a pretty short poem by Langston Hughes. Back then, I was a super shy student and rarely talked in class unless I was called upon. This time around, the teacher did just that and called on me and asked, how do I identify? So I told him, and then through extension, the rest of the class, because I was put on the spot there, that my mom was Caucasian and my father was African American. So I was Black and white. I was both. His response, and I'm paraphrasing here, and it wasn't really from a place of malintent. I think it was just a decisive statement that he said was, the rest of the world will see you as a Black woman. So this comment has stuck with me, and is something I've asked myself continuously throughout the years. Why is that? Why can't I be both? This is a complex question, and as I've come to learn, one with numerous conclusions that different people, scholars, researchers draw. Being of mixed race and dealing with incidents my entire life about my Black and white identity has made me think more fluidly about intersectionality, hybridity, binaries, and in-between spaces. So fast forward from that experience on senior year in high school, and I'm now a freshman in college at Cal Poly. I was browsing classes to enroll in one quarter and came across ethnic studies. So being an English major, I had many elective credit units to fill. After meeting with an academic advisor, I decided to minor in ethnic studies, and I took an introductory class. So the primary book for that class was A Different Mirror, A History of Multicultural America by Dr. Ronald Takaki. This is a foundational text within ethnic studies discipline. Dr. Sharice Cheney was a professor that I took multiple ethnic studies classes with during my undergraduate studies at Cal Poly. She's since moved on to a university in Oregon. She was the first Black female professor I ever had. And it took all the way until, midway through my college career to have that experience. It was empowering for me to witness another woman of color teaching ethnic studies, and she inspired me to continue on this trajectory. Another defining educational experience for me was as an undergraduate student also at Cal Poly, and it was through the National Student Exchange Program, so NSC. I participated in this my junior year, when many of my peers were going to study abroad and travel to different countries. Me being from the small town of Paso Robles, the idea of going abroad was just too frightening. So I decided, okay, if I'm gonna push myself, then maybe I'll go to a different school within the United States. So I studied at Southern University Agricultural and Mechanical College, a historically Black college and university in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for the fall of the 2005 semester. Little did I know, if anyone is kind of doing the math and,
no, not yet. I'm just bringing up the signs.
and can remember what happened in 2005, it was one of the worst natural disasters in US history that would strike, and I'd be there to witness it, Hurricane Katrina. Visually seeing the damage and destruction that inequity, class, and racism manifests in our country both infuriated me, yet also further sparked my interest to study these disparities and be proactive within my community. It was while I was in Louisiana that I took the most influential college course of my entire undergraduate academic career, a course called Black Psychology with Dr. Reginald Rackley. Dr. Rackley deconstructed everything that I'd learned about history, the world, even myself, and also taught me to question everything. Even more, he guided me to become a self-reflecting, racially conscious, independent, and critical thinker. I realized that I had been trained in a Eurocentric paradigm for the majority of my life, and it was past due for me to adopt and adapt a mindset to a more culturally inclusive framework. So with the intent of merging my undergraduate degree, a bachelor's in English literature, and a minor in ethnic studies, I applied to master level programs in ethnic studies and African American studies. In August of 2008, I moved to San Francisco and enrolled in the Master in Ethnic Studies program at the historic SF State and declared a concentration in Africana Studies. I took advantage of work study and became a graduate assistant for the Africana Studies department. It's also a way for me to push myself outside my bubble and be able to network. In my second year, I was a teacher assistant for Dr. Dorothy Saruta in the class she taught, Africana Studies 210, Introduction to Africana Literature. Little did I know at the time, but this would become one of the classes I would then go on to teach at San Francisco State. And I still teach that class to this day. So when I graduated from the Ethnic Studies Master's program, I immediately began teaching as an adjunct in the following fall. In the fall of 2014, I enrolled in the EdD, Educational Leadership Program at San Francisco State University to fulfill my dream of obtaining a doctorate degree so that I could pursue my ideal professional passion of a tenure track position within ethnic studies. And as a first generation college student, I am grateful and fortunate to have witnessed firsthand just how transformational education can be. Because of the opportunities that I've experienced, a constant goal of mine is to promote cultural inclusivity, humility, and critical consciousness into all scholarly and academic endeavors, especially within the classroom. So I share this extensive background of my educational journey because it paints the picture that exposure to ethnic studies can plant the seed for self-discovery, and ethnic studies courses do just that for our students. Professors that I've studied with, such as Dr. Sharice Cheney and Dr. Rackley, are my motivation for developing a teaching style and classroom environment that challenges conventional notions of thinking. And I encourage you, wherever you are and whatever stage in life, to think about the influential educators who have made that mark and that impact on you. I firmly believe that teaching and learning is a reciprocal process. As the instructor, I understand it is my responsibility to deliver information to my students and provide a space for them to critically analyze, discuss, and make meaning of the material that they are learning. Just as I teach to broaden students' conception of the world, I also learn from my students, and most often through the unique and diverse perspectives that they bring with them to their course. The very formation of the discipline of ethnic studies was born through student protest and demand for an inclusive history that honored and remembered communities of color in the United States. The College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University is historically significant as it continues to be the first and the only college of ethnic studies in the nation. College of Ethnic Studies resulted from student-led protests in the late 1960s. These protests advocated for histories of marginalized communities of color to be included in college curriculum, with the goal of establishing counter-narratives to Eurocentric institutional knowledge that dominated colleges and universities at the time. More and more colleges and universities now have ethnic studies departments. Well, maybe not a college, but they do have departments or at the very least courses, and continue to offer ethnic studies courses. And unfortunately, there's some places where there aren't even classes in ethnic studies, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the address. There's different historical branches that comprise ethnic studies. So different universities, colleges will say them by different names, such as Africana Studies or Pan-African Studies or Black Studies. There's American Indian, Native, Indigenous Studies. Yes, I see the note. I'll slow down. I can sometimes talk a bit fast. Thank you for that. There's also Asian American Studies or Pan-Asian Studies, Latino or Latina Studies, Latinx Studies, Chicano Studies, Raza Studies, and even Race and Resistance Studies, which is a new program that San Francisco State started. All of these different disciplines intersect to form the foundation for the larger discipline of ethnic studies. A quantitative report published in the Ethnic Studies Review employed data from San Francisco State University's Division of Institutional Analytics and showed a strong correlation between ethnic studies curriculum and high retention and graduation rates. This study validated previous qualitative research on the value and impact of ethnic studies curriculum that suggested ethnic studies leads to higher student engagement and retention because students respond well when they see themselves in the curriculum and can relate, and therefore perform better academically. Disciplines such as ethnic and Africana studies innately incorporate culturally relevant and inclusive curriculum, thereby rendering a critical race pedagogy. In working toward a synthesized definition of ethnic studies pedagogy, Tintianco Cubales and authors identified commonalities of ethnic studies instructors. These commonalities included their use of culturally and community responsive pedagogy and ways their racial identity informs their teaching. Although designed with K through 12 teachers of ethnic studies in mind, ethnic studies pedagogy is applicable to all levels of teaching and learning. With respect to how students are conceptualized with an ethnic studies framework, there are three aspects of culturally responsive pedagogy that center the student and their lived experience. One of those is building upon students' experiences and perspectives. The second is developing students' critical consciousness. And third is creating a caring academic environment. So in addition to strengthening ethnic studies pedagogy, culturally relevant approaches to pedagogy have additional distinctions. Ladson Billings, some of you may be familiar with that name, in 2009 identified characteristics and competencies of teachers skilled in culturally relevant pedagogy. So this is typically abbreviated as CRP, but because I'm also using critical race pedagogy, rather than it being confusing of just saying CRP, I am going to say out each time the one that I'm referencing and referring to, because although they are similar and there's overlaps, there are also distinct differences between the two terms. So these teachers understand knowledge should be viewed critically and is a reciprocal process between students and teachers. Additionally, teachers with expertise in culturally relevant pedagogy are passionate about teaching and helping students develop necessary skills to be successful learners. Similarly, cultural humility, a branch of cultural competence that emerged from the health and professional care industry, involves self-reflection and awareness of power dynamics and personal biases as it relates to human interaction. The concept of cultural humility has largely dominated community-based practitioner research, especially in medical professions. Cultural humility promotes empathy, understanding, and self-awareness of oneself and others, racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. Although cultural humility originated in the health and professional care industry, the application and practice of cultural humility can be applied across all disciplines, including education. There is value in being an instructor who exudes cultural humility because it allows for a teacher to put themselves in the shoes of their student, which further dismantles the power dynamics that can oftentimes be found in the classroom setting. Historically, culturally relevant pedagogy has been absent from traditional school curriculum, even though the ethnic studies movement within education has made gains in producing culturally relevant curriculum, resulting in a critical race pedagogy. It has been a slower process for critical race pedagogy to become fully integrated into curricular standards across disciplines. Critical race pedagogy and curriculum is critical to redefining educational institutions' approach to determining whose knowledge has legitimacy and the hierarchical structures of oppression that exist within that determination. While culturally relevant pedagogy addresses the importance of culture in schooling, it does not focus explicitly on race and racism. Therefore, Ladson, Billings, and Tate called for a critical theory of race in education. What culturally relevant pedagogy lacked in bringing attention to race and the effects of racism, critical race theory, CRT, could bring to the forefront. According to Kimberly Crenshaw, CRT, critical race theory, embraces 5 tenets: racialized power, permanence or centrality of race, counter storytelling as a legitimate critique of the master narrative, interest convergence, and a critique of liberalism. And this was published in one of her groundbreaking articles in 1995. CRT originated in legal scholarship. However, it would be imprudent not to mention the underpinnings and motivation behind the critical race theoretical framework, given the connection to race and racism in the political landscape relative to communities of color. So shifting critical race theory and the interdisciplinary work of legal scholarship into the field of education, a critical race pedagogy begins to emerge. Critical race pedagogy includes a framework that serves to illuminate the multiple layers of oppression students of color experience in the classroom through pedagogy and practice. Benavides Lopez wrote a very powerful self-reflection about the role of ethnic studies professors as healers, stating that the work is situated in culturally responsive pedagogy and critical consciousness, a theory defined by Paulo Freire. And Benavides Lopez attests to digital auto testimonials or personal historical narratives for students to center their stories of struggle and survival, empowering students to draw from their own personal cultural history and experiential knowledge to counter oppression and exclusion. So then why is there so much fear around educating folks on ethnic studies, or even most recently, the ban of certain content in African American advanced placement classes? It wasn't too long ago, around 2010, when Tucson, Arizona was battling a similar issue with Mexican American studies and other ethnic studies courses at high schools. Lately, the news has been centered around Florida's attempts to ban certain aspects of fill in the blanks XYZ for a state that prides itself on American ideals such as freedom of speech. It really is having a field day with public censorship and bans. So let's take a look at a Time magazine video that explains the situation more. And this is a brief video, about 3 minutes. And I'm going to share my screen and then show it. Oh, saying my screen sharing is paused. Let me go ahead and try that up again and see. If not, I have it queued on a tab. Maybe that's going to be easier to share. Let's try that out instead.
Affecting the African American History Pilot Program, Ron DeSantis has clearly demonstrated that he wants to dictate whose story does and doesn't belong. He wants to control what our kids can learn based on politics and not sound policy. He repeatedly attacks the First Amendment rights of Floridians, with books being banned from libraries and classrooms, and now throwing his weight against this AP African American History course.
I have some readings for, hey, what's up, Will? How's it going, man? Right? I have some readings for y'all. Oh, here you go, 1 and 2. Kids have a burning desire to understand, why do certain groups of people live on this side of town, or why do only certain people live here? What are the social codes that we all seem to follow without, really acknowledging that we're following a code of some sort? And I think they want to know these things. They want to know, where does this stuff come from? And those answers in the history. During the Harlem Renaissance and other political thought movements with his Pan-African ideas.
We need classes like African American Studies in order to really delve in the full depths of Black history, all of the culture and stuff that I said I'm interested in. And I really don't understand what the concerns are with African American Studies, if I'm being completely honest. I don't feel particularly indoctrinated.
In other classes, it's just the surface. We touch the surface, but in this class, it's like we're touching the surface. We're touching why things happen, when they happen, and the outcome of those particular events. And I feel like that's all we really want as, like I said, marginalized children, to understand why we still face these issues that were created 300 years ago, and why we still face the consequences of them today.
Because I wanted to continue my education in Black history and just history, period, because African American history is American history, it is world history. Anytime slavery is mentioned, or anytime a group in America is oppressed, it's going to cause controversy, but that should make you want to talk about it even more, so that we can prevent anything oppressive from happening again in the future. And that's the purpose of history, and that's the purpose of why it's being taught.
I think it's important for people to understand every single kid who takes this course signed up with parental permission. They are not being forced to take this course. They have a genuine interest and they want to know more about all of the things that we talk about in this course.
Oh, now it's playing. The other one is playing. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're back. Now, there were lots of videos to select from, but I chose that one in particular because I liked the neutrality and focus on the positive aspects of ethnic studies. In this case, the teaching of African American history in schools. It didn't get too bogged down with the political climate and slinging names through the mud. It just simply presented the impact of students receiving education focused on principles of social justice, anti-racism, decolonization, and equity. The divisiveness of ethnic studies curriculum has hit home even closer to home in the last few years, with the high school level class being taught at Paso Robles being under scrutiny, and elements of critical race theory being preemptively banned by the Paso Robles School Board. And this is quite unfortunate. I share these examples, which have all been reported in different news mediums and outlets as a form of public knowledge, which some of you may already be aware of, not to start drama, but rather to raise awareness. We need to be open to difference of opinions and ideas to have true dialogue. Visibility and awareness is vital to thinking critically about representation, inclusion, and a myriad of other topics ethnic studies seeks to address. Luckily, we live, or at least most of us, there may be some folks tuning in virtually from out of state or even country, in California, where ethnic studies education is being championed by the people. This recognition of its value and learning opportunity for all students has made it so legislation will be mandating graduates from high school complete an ethnic studies course. Additionally, students who go on to higher education will need to complete an ethnic studies class as part of their academic studies and degree requirements. There was much grassroots work done at the California State University level with AB 1460 legislation, where students graduating from a CSU must complete an ethnic studies class. The California Community College system is following suit, which is incredible. And now we are just beginning to integrate and normalize ethnic studies education within the state. And this is a huge win. While these policies are being implemented as requirements, it's worthy to note that many researchers, educators, and scholars today view policy as the major way to change and impact the present and future of America. Ibram X. Kendi, renowned professor, scholar, and author, asserts that being anti-racist in practice and policy is the key to dismantling institutional racism. Well, certainly making ethnic studies curriculum part of educational policy in our state, rather than banning it, is a step in the right direction. For dissenters or critics, perhaps it's a framing issue, and rather than seeing this as mandates, perhaps if we shifted perspectives to see this quote unquote requirement as an investment or an opportunity to learn about the diversity of ethnic and racial groups and how important of a skill that is in today's global world, then ethnic studies can continue to be embraced and elevated. Thank you. I'll go ahead and share the reference slide and turn it over for comments or questions.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley. Why don't we give Dr. Wiley a round of applause, folks? So we do have some time for some questions. What was that?
Sorry, my video's playing. I'm trying to show the reference slide. Let me pull.
So I think we have questions on Zoom, and we can answer some questions from folks who are here present.
Grammarly has again been a lifesaver with my
video.
application.
Does anyone here would like to ask a question to Dr. Wiley?
Rejecting that.
Okay, if not, we can maybe check on Zoom. Does our Zoom support have a question?
Juan Sanchez has his hand up.
Okay. Go ahead, Juan.
I think Zoom support just needs to let them unmute.
I have done that.
I do see a question in the chat while that's getting sorted out from Vanessa Harris. And she asked, with regards to parts that were banned, what were they specifically in Arizona? So the ethnic studies controversy in ethics in Arizona started with the banning of Mexican American studies and teaching that within high school classes.
I see a question, a hand up back here. 1 second.
I wonder if Dr. Wiley could share the poem that she mentioned by Langston Hughes.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. So it's Cross by Langston Hughes. It was published initially in the Old Weary Blues, and it goes like this. My old man's a white old man. My old mother's black. If I ever cursed my white old man, I take my curses back. If I ever cursed my black old ma and wish she were in hell, I'm sorry for that evil wish, and now I wish her well. My old man died in a fine big house, and my ma died in a shack. I wonder where I'm gonna die, being neither white nor black.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley.
You're welcome.
Do I have other questions? I have another question here in person.
Thank you so much for being with us, Doctor. I did have a question. So Dr. Carrasco, he is a religious history professor outside of the discipline of Chicano studies. And he pointed out since 1982, published in the Chicano journal Raza Studies, of the absence of religiosity and spirituality within the field of ethnic studies. Can you elaborate a little bit more on this?
That is a really, really great question. And with my own research, I don't look necessarily at aspects of spirituality or religion within ethnic studies. When I was doing my graduate work, I did write a paper for one of my African American studies about the impact of like African spirituality and Eurocentric Christianity, and then how it's become more centered in African roots. So I don't have as much information. I'm happy to open it up to the group if anyone has additional insight to be able to add in the spirit of learning from each other. So I'm sorry I'm not able to give more of a definitive response there, but I just don't want to speak out of pocket, not really knowing my stuff there.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley. We do have a couple of questions on Zoom, and one is from LaWanda Lyons Pruitt. It says, Dr. Wiley, can you summarize in one sentence each the difference between CRT and ethnic studies? My understanding is CRT is taught at the college level and not in K-12 grade. One way to counter the negativity would be to highlight this difference.
Sure, yeah, and I agree with that. A big piece of critical race theory is that it originated in legal studies. And so it was taught to students who were studying to become lawyers. That's what Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw's background is in legal scholarship. So there's often a misconception that it's being taught in K-12, but really when ethnic studies is being taught for younger age levels, it's being the material is being monitored and developed so that it's appropriate for that right age level, because CRT is a concept that you would learn more about in advanced graduate level studies. And so the distinction I think between CRT is that it's legal scholarship, and then it ties into ethnic studies because of that link to critical race pedagogy that I talked about in terms of how do we include it within education and ethnic studies discipline, focusing on critical race, because that's really what ethnic studies is about, is looking at race, ethnicity, and experiences of historically disenfranchised groups. So that would be my response. And I know it was more than one sentence each, but I hope that suffices.
We have time for about one more. Yeah.
What was your favorite thing to study overall?
Oh, love that question. My goodness, so much. But I guess my favorite passion is what's really exciting within the field of ethnic studies, and it's looking at critical mixed race studies. So how mixed race identity fits into the field of ethnic studies. And so being mixed race myself, as you know, the poem by Langston Hughes captured, is something that there's lots of question marks about. And so that's something I'm very passionate about. And I was introduced to it through Harlem Renaissance literature courses, reading works such as Passing by Nella Larson, and Black No More by George Schuyler. So a lot of really greats in the Harlem Renaissance. That's probably my favorite genre.
Oh, I see another. We do have one more question here in the audience. 1 second.
On that topic, do you have suggested reading for younger children that might be growing up mixed race in elementary age that you would suggest exposing to them kind of early on?
Ooh, another really great question. So I have young nieces who are 7, well, 8, and both 8 now. One just turned 8, so 2 8-year-old nieces. And so I'm always thinking about this and what I want to share with them that's age appropriate for their levels. So right now there's a lot of good books out there that really cater to diversity and representation. And many, major stores like Target, and, Amazon, you can order them and find them. So for older students, there's the 1619 Project has a book of poetry for probably teenage level, junior high teenage, that talks about the experience of Blacks, being brought to the United States. So that's by Nicole Hannah Jones. And then there's also a more advanced copy for an older audience, the 1619 Project. So those are, that's, one recommendation that I have, but I'm always looking for, good recommendations myself to include. But it's just an exciting time to see what's being developed and, that's being put out there.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley, and thank you to those who posed questions today. So we'd like to wrap up the keynote now and move on to the workshop portion of today's agenda. So there are 2 workshops happening at 11 a.m. There's one on Black Studies in room, do we have? We'll get it to you in a second.
Black Studies is in room 2601 with the student art exhibit in 2602.
Yes, and then the other workshop is a Chicanx and Latinx Studies workshop happening in 2608. These workshops are led by current Cuesta students in ethnic studies in our Ethnic Studies for Educators class 210. So for those of you who are in here, if you want to go to the Black Studies workshop, you're going to follow Dr. Espinosa Kulik. If you want to see the Chicanx and Latinx Studies, you will follow me. And for those of you on Zoom, there's links for you to go check out those workshops to watch them via Zoom. We hope that you all had a wonderful time in this morning, and we want to thank Dr. Brittany Wiley one more time for joining us today and sharing her work.
Thank you so much, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.